Alright, now that I finally got this thing recording. Okay, so this is my Anylogic maze model. And I chose a maze that had multiple paths. I didn't realize at the time when I chose it that it had multiple paths. I really just chose it because it was square and it was easy to create the walls. Similar to how we did in the subway entrance model. And then what I did was, after I created the walls, which if you can see it's kind of like blurred out right here, it's because it's ignoring the picture of the maze behind the walls. So when it goes into the 3D view, you can only see the walls instead of the whole picture. But so this is the entrance right here, and then here's the target line, which is the exit. So once they get to the middle, they should exit out of the maze. And I noticed that there are a couple open spots on this maze. However, this one you can see it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. But I use this as my starting point, and then here, this one I used as like an out of bounds kind of thing. And so if you look in my code, it will show up as out of bounds. Then there's a few different routes. The main route seems to be this one, the yellow goldish color. And then I've also seen the agents go towards this way. They've gone this way and they've gone this way. So what you'll see on the pedestrian density map after I start it is that each one of the avenues will show up as you know, more red, I guess. Eventually it'll start blue and then, you know, go up towards red the more that they use it. So then in the homework assignment, we were asked to also change the parameters of the agents. So you'll see once I started that the parameter that I chose was the max and min number of people going through. And that changes usually the routes that they take. For instance, if this route, which seems to be the #1 route for all the agents, ends up being too crowded, then they end up going another way. And then what I did was, we were also asked to do some statistics, and I didn't output any particular raw values. There is an option to do that within Anylogic through the database, which I believe is here. But I didn't output any raw data, but what I did do is I connected some of these lines, these target lines and traffic lines, to the plots you'll see right here, which output visualization of the statistics. So one of them is a traffic time plot, and the other one is an intensity time plot, which are both linked to the pedestrian heat map. And so those will output different colors for each one of the routes, and each one of these colors is associated with the line above, so it's easy to view. And then I also thought about how I would personally, let me get rid of this, how I would personally like to see the data, because this was stuff that I kind of saw an example of. And I was like, okay, well, there's an example of it. I'll do it because it seems like it's appropriate for the model. But I was really interested in was the count, or the number of individuals going into each one of the routes. So what I also did was I created a bar graph, and then again linked each one of these lines to one of the, or each one of the bars to one of these lines up here. And what you'll see here is there's a static number right now, but I don't know why that came back. Let's get rid of that again. But the static numbers, once it starts running, you'll see that they'll increase by the number of agents that go through that line. So not only does it show the count as a bar graph, but it will also show you the exact number here as well, which is kind of informational and useful. So I'm going to run this model. And after that, what I'm going to do is show you a different model that I created for different other types of behaviors that are actually more aligned to the Boyd's codes that we did. Okay, so you'll see now that I've started the run for the simulation, and like I said, you can't see the maze now because I made it Anylogic ignore the maze picture, but you can see the walls that I drew. And I've started it, but I paused it because I wanted to show you guys exactly how the heat map works. Right now there are 2,000 people coming in per hour. And so I'm going to vary that, and then I'm also going to show you the controls that I input into hiding and showing the pedestrian density map so that it's easier to see the agents at certain points, but it's also really informational to see the heat map as well. Then I'll go through the 3D view and the statistics that I talked about before. So I'm going to play this, and you'll see that some of the agents go through one way and then they'll start going in through another way. And what you'll also see is that sometimes, depending on how many people are in the simulation, I don't know if it'll do it now, but when I was running it before, I noticed that sometimes they will actually, there you go, they will exit out of the target or the start line and go towards that out of bounds thing and then come back into the model. And then sometimes they'll come out here and then go up and then come back down. So I'm going to hide the pedestrian map. And like I said, here's the out of bounds area, and you'll see some of the agents have gone out and in, but it's nice to kind of be able to see it without the color. There's also an option in Anylogic to make it more transparent as well, which is what I did originally, but I kind of wanted to be able to play around with these buttons. So, and you can show it or hide it. I know there is also a way to make one button and then turn it on and off, but I couldn't remember how to do that. So, and I actually let it run for a little bit, but what you'll see here is if you switch to the stats view, so this was the traffic time plot, and I don't know why it's doing this. I guess because whoops, it's way too small. I have a touchscreen, so it's not super sensitive. Anyway, but you can see the intensity and the time plots are working how they should be. And then let's see if I can make it a little bit smaller. Yeah. And then the bar chart when it was running, and these actually go while it's running, but then the bar chart as well, you'll see how many people entered which route. So about 413 people went out and in out of bounds. So that might have been actually the same agent. I'm not sure how I would statistically differ those two, whether or not it was just an out or just an in, or if it was both. I haven't played around with that yet, but I could. And then also you'll see each one of the routes, which ones they took. This is the exit and this is the enter. So the enter had the most, right, which is what I would expect. And then Route 1 was the most popular one, but I noticed when I was, when the agents are going through, that they'll take different routes, like I said before, and so routes 2, 3, and 4 are here as well. They're not used nearly as often, but they are used in case it is too busy. And then how many agents actually exited before the simulation stopped. So there are still some in there right now, but okay, let me try rerunning this. Okay, so you'll see here, I want to actually slow it down. So like I showed you before those, and then also if I vary this, it'll slow the amount, or sorry, lower the amount of people going through the maze. So you'll see this is where before we changed it, and now we're seeing after we changed it how slow people are, or how fewer people there are. But I guess they still go different routes depending on, I don't know. I haven't figured out how it's doing that, why they're going different routes, but I still thought that was kind of cool, giving them options and they don't necessarily all go the exact same way. And also my 3D view, you can see there are people going through there, and like I said, I made certain parts invisible because I only wanted to see the maze itself, and so this is what ended up happening. You can see the walls and the pedestrians, but you don't see the picture underneath or any of the controls.